Revival TV Amagarum Wijwire. Revival TV Amagarum Wijwire.
Yabare mnongo murebe wa Revival TV tukusima mnongo kureba ngo cyekwatire ukurwo mukasheshe kandi nangwa niwo wabase kuba natandukana itwe Sunday yahu izoberi yanyuma abazyo turukongera kuhereza biri kugenda mu misho kwenda ngo kabasa kuba no bitungaje mnonga hinga mbrebi tushiriyo mwanya gwa Las Vegas aho mu Rembo Rwambara hatebekanisiwe mu kiganiro cy'amana mnonga ekitebekanisiwe ba International Ecumenical Conference kandi bakwatanise na Bishop Stuart University itendekero nyamurunge rukushangwaho mu Rembo Rwambara kandi rukurwa Chancellor wario nowe Associate Professor Fred Sheldon Mwesugwa hamwe na Vice Chancellor ahabwitendekereri Professor John Mugisha aito gambrebi uwa watandukane to mukasheshe turiyo ntongera kugenda mu mesho kandi tuija umusheka citu cya kabiri ekizobera kandi kiri cikuru munonga ecyo tashemeye kuba no ferwa ntutekateka mu mudakika nce munonga ntaza kuba hataha mu mugenyi mukuru kandi hona nabo ntuje kutunga okugamba kwa Vice Chancellor ntuje kuba ntutunga hona nabo okugamba kwa Chief Convener ahabwa Ecumenical Conference ahabwa ejetebekanisiwe aba Bishop Stuart University kandi hona nabo ntuje kutunga okugamba ko mugenyi mukuru nangwa no kongera koreka ibindi bintu birukorwa beji okurga omwitendekereri area Bishop Stuart University natungo mugisha natungo mu mbebembeze bakuru kandi abari omukoganizinga conference age awishemwe na nikushanga washo muzindaro gutarabire mukace hatutwayikankahi kandi torekerera kuzareki
obere mnonga ekikore cyakabe kitwazamu tuyonsaga kom two different conference halls hazana bakubana batoreka researches bakozire emwe nekwata ahamagara gabishemwe no kuba kutura obwiro buringo bamara omaka kandi nahabwenshi bamazira obwiro obwe kandi tubareba ngo n'abarokore bakuru. Then echweke kindi kirimu religion and family nayo ni research ekozirwe mu Burundi nambwe noriyo nakugitarabira muno mwahure nawo narga Burundi ekye conference yiturumu erimu abantu bakorwa mu mahanga gatakushana cyo kureba twine ko gorwa Burundi oriyo nija kutugambira ebikufa mu ihanga ryabo nizo twaje twayegamu nk'abariyo mu itenderekero ryabeji babare mnonga
ntuteka kuhendera nkashazinga hi for this day too.
This day too nsa kuhendera omwazi ari 11 aho kwa hati tuyonza kuzo session age kwerahwe turinzire ondijo mjenyu mukuru kano karema kwara tusheho nawe ejo 9 session ndijo etiyonza gomza mnayo tukumwakira kandi tukazomo tweta exhibitions kureba abantu ebatebekanise obwenje bwabo kuba butiro mu nkora kugira ngo bihemu ebakubasa kuguza bakiha musente kandi twagumuza mutunguri hanga ryitu webare mnonga.
Okay, thank you so much. Yakushobora ibintu binji munonga ebyoshemeye kuba notunga kandi nebikiriyo mbyongera kuija ompate ya kabiri itwa Revival TV turiho kureba ngo twabasa kuba ntukwereza omukoro gugwona okureba ngo conference y'itwagiferwa oriya heru ogere cyo wagasirwamo kandi Revival TV niyo shonga bwenshi yabase kuba netandika kandi okureba ngo wabasa kuba notunga ebindi binji munonga ebyo tashemeye kuba noferwa Revival TV turiho muhereza bwitu kandi tukumanyisa ngo toshemeye kuba noferwa nizo beri yanyincakare ntuje kuba turuha habo kuba ntwena ngo tukwereze ibintu binji munonga andi byo tashemeye kuba noferwa noja kutukura tram kura yitwe tari yemwe nemwe kandi ubwo rukongera kutunga Revival TV na YouTube noja kuba nostunga rukutungaje ebiri kugenda mesho Bishop Stuart University nitendekero kandi rihansi y'obureberezi obwankore obwo ekigenderwa necyo kureba ngo babangura umwana we hanga kutari kushoma konka uko mukerasi kureka abase kuba nashomesubwa no kuba umuntu w'umugasho nyincakare tubenterebe ibintu binji munonge barukoreka ahanke itendekero by'abana barukwekora kandi kibakere cikuru munongo kureba ngo babasa kuba no bitunga ebye mukono abeje nabatendekwe byo buhinje no burisa abeje batangiye kujumbura ibintu bitari umwe na umwe ekinkibancho ncoreka ngo itendekereri riyonde terror tambera hango munonga ombwiro ernitendekere yahereze myaka 20 kuyiharutondwaho kandi riyondo koromoro mu mahango munonga ahabwa beje abarukorwa mu itendekere baheza kwendere mushomo yabo a certificates diploma nangwa otereho degree na masters abenji nabomba tunga PhDs mwenje bakiri cikuru munongo kureba ngo wangira kwetegereza Bishop Stuart University ne Manyisachi omu cyange cya Burongero izoba obwo rukongera okujetegereza no kujumanyaho yongera kuratare bindi binje biturukuje kubandi kwereza abo kwa turuho kureba ngo pateje ya kabiri yona twabasa kubandi jukwereza je munonga Revival TV noja kuba nostunga ona nabo a Star Times antena 2032 obwo rukongera kutunga program zona za Revival TV kandi hona nabo no kongera kukuratara ebintu bitukubandi kwereza hambeho zitu obwo orukutunga je munonga kandi hona nabwo to live aha YouTube iwe cyawe cikore munonga kandi orebe ngo wabasa kuba no tutunga no kongera kushoborekerwa ebindi binje munonga ebiyo tashemeye kuba no ferwa ni nyongera okwereza abandi bantu kandi abindi kwija kuba ni nkwereza barukongera kutuganira nareba ha Reverend Canon agasha muhezi ogo nakurire byo bwegese kandi n'umuntu mukuru munonga department age neberi inkuru munonga eye byo bwegese turyanshonga yo bwegese Canon nakwakira ahambeho za Revival TV ramuse abantu abari kutureba kandi otugambire nkiwe uri no gasirwa cyo mushomo gukana kimanyisaki okutahe mushomo nkeje amatendekero
yabarene banyeta Reverend Canon agasha muhezi ndi education secretary habwa nkore diocese emishomo nkeji netuyamba okoreka amashemero gite kigakobasa gukora ahero ko mu stores tureba abiji ba Bishop Stuart University ebintu bariyo no bakora amashita go kwesiga ebyagurukira bariyo no bakora emabaze bariyo no bakora ekobasa kukozesebwa abarisa n'abahinji omufamu zabo kandi abo koreka abanyamadini inganda zona bakubasa gukora hamwe bakakora intunguka kandi no kureba ibintu by'ekanisa byekozere nka amarwaro nka amashomero kandi twantureba ngo ihanga ekanisa ekozera amarwaro mingi nka Mengo Hospital Kararu. Yes,
yebare mnonga kanona katukuhereze byona ebiri kugenda omesho ahambeho za Revival TV otaragaho.
Revival TV amagarum wijwire. Revival TV amagarum wijwire.
And we will be listening to this presentation shortly. I wanted to start by saying that the relationship between religion and development is very, very crucial because religion brings people together and it creates a sense of belief in people. And so if people don't believe that development is important, then there will be no development. So I want to welcome you. Thank you for coming back to this session. And the first presenter is going to be somebody who is dear to all of us. Yesterday we had so many versions of introduction of him. Right Reverend Associate Professor Bishop Sheldon. And I simply call him Bishop Sheldon, and he's my writing bishop. I call him my writing bishop because I joined UCU in 2008, and that is where I met Bishop Sheldon. When he was still a dean and a teacher like me, now he's a different person. You're most welcome to the podium. And I also would like to invite the next presenter to take their seat first so that we will start and roll. May I invite Reverend Bernard Rwamugabo to come and take a seat up as well. Thank you. So Bishop Sheldon, this is your moment to speak to us about your research and what it means. I think you are welcome to make that presentation from here. And
I'm trying to look out for my team. Dr. Twine, Dr. Donna.
If you're on Bishop's team,
I may get stuck on the way if I don't have my team.
If you're on Bishop's team,
Never
please
mind.
make sure
Let's
you're close by, and please, you're welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Marazzo, Emile, for that kind introduction. And as she said, I saw her as a student, growing and growing. Now she's very high up there. She's one of the most accomplished writers now in our public spaces. By the way, writing an article every week, I pity you. Because for me, I have the luxury. I get inspiration, I see a situation, think around it, sometimes gather data here and there, then relax a bit. Even now I've spent like a month not writing, or 2 even. But I try to be regular. But I really salute you. It's not easy at all. This presentation, the technical team is not here. So we can go ahead, as Dr. Ruzaza said, exploring lived experiences of Anglican Christians and longevity in marriage in Ankole Diocese. This is the topic that we have been exploring, and the background of it is that we have a research team which I head or lead, and the research team has on Dr. Donna Asimire, then Dr. Johnson Atwine, and Mr. Bertram Namanya. These guys have been so supportive in this project that we have been running for a while. And the background for it is that I first got inspiration. Like I said, it's like when you write, you need to be inspired. You watch something, you are touched by something, and you want it to express your feelings about it. Maybe through a poem, maybe through research, maybe through an article in the papers. So when I came from UCU, where she mentioned, where I was Dean, Faculty of Education, I was able to see something strange, see old people wherever I would go in the field. And then when I started asking and inquiring, I found that a good number of them were married, and for a long period of time. Said, what is this? Then I started probing, gathering data here and there. Then there was a hypothesis kind of saying that people who are of faith, on average, they live longer than those who are not of faith. So that's where it all started. And so the background, you'll get the first slide. We've made it so brief, but if you want detail, actually I don't know why we don't have the journals here. For BSU, there is the freshest journal, and the first article in there is part of our research work. Does participation in religious activities contribute towards longevity in marriage? The lived experiences of born-again Anglican Christians in Ankole Diocese. So you can, through this, these will be made available because they came some 2-3 days ago. I'll urge the team here to make them available. I think you normally sell them, not so? Yeah. So if you want details, you can get through that. So the background, we looked at the purpose of marriage. What is the purpose of marriage? Companionship is one of the key aspects. And we all know when you go to the Bible, Genesis 2, verse 18, it says, the Lord God said, it is not good for man to be alone. I'll make a helper suitable for him. Not good at all for man to be alone. I'll make a helper suitable for him. So there, we are talking about companionship. Sadly, most Africans, when we look at marriage, we are looking at many other factors. I remember we had a young man when we were still teaching, when people used to do Mungo packing, when we would be in the staff room as a teacher, he would come back from very far, and then he says, he had his jacket. He said, this jacket, I need to marry so that I get someone who can wash my jacket. So that was his main motivation for marriage. The jacket was becoming a problem. But sadly, he died and he never married. So, but there must be many who probably are like that. But companionship is one of the most important aspects of marriage. 2, procreation, of course, to go fill the earth and bear children. Very important, children. It is God ordained. In the Western world, they are talking about demographic winter. If you Google demographic winter, you will see what it means. People no longer produce children because of LGBTQI and whatever. A good number of Western European countries quietly encourage immigration. They don't want to say it out loud, but they quietly encourage immigration, people to go there, because if they don't, they are going to lack people who are going to work, pay taxes, and feed the old ones. So they have very many old people. The young, most of them don't work, so there is a problem. So they are going against God, because God said, go fill the earth and subdue it. If you have children, you have wealth. Then 1 Corinthians 7:2-5, avoiding adultery. In the Zaburi, the book of Zaburi, our prayer book, it gives 3, by the way, purposes of marriage. 1, to give birth to children. 2, companionship, and 3, to avoid sexual temptations. Those who cannot manage alone, let them have someone, then they can fulfill their sexual desires. There are 3 main purposes of marriage. So the biblical principle of marriage is a very, very serious one. And yeah, you can see the photographs. Marriage, very beautiful, handsome, wonderful moments of marriage. The only day that you can be a prince or a princess is that one, if you are not born a king, and a happy marriage. The second slide, the purpose of the study and the findings, to find out how lived experiences of born-again Christians contribute to longevity. Some of the aspects we probed and were able to come up with, we saw prayer. And under prayer, there is forgiveness of sin, or you forgive your partner. You find it very easy. 1 John 1:8. If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and there is no truth in us. So a Christian, a born again, is ready to forgive. But if you are not, you cannot forgive. There is forgiveness, closeness and harmony, repentance, which I've talked about, and peace. 2, involvement in church activities. There is a high association of involvement in church activities. There is responsibility, happiness, and it ends up reducing on violence. Violence is very big. We have police officers here. The crime report, which is made in Uganda, says actually this region, Ruiz region, crime, including domestic violence, is one of the highest in Uganda. We are like number 2, if not number 1. Ruizi is Ankole region, Ntungamo, Bushenyi, Ibanda, and Nyabushozi, something like that. So, but this is the area where there is a religion, but then there is a contradiction. But we discover that where there is involvement in church activities, generally, there is positivity and reduced violence. There is increased bond between husband and wife. There is walking in light. God is light, 1 John 1:5. In him there is no darkness. You walk in light. People who do not know, who do not practice Christian values, they normally have a lot of darkness in their marriage. You find a man is making a lot of money. A story is told in Kampala of someone who had built a powerful house and he was renting it, and then unfortunately he passed away. So the person who was renting the house tried to trace the owner of the house. He used to come driving in a certain car, certain color. So he traced it until he got to where the wife was. And he said, we are looking for, he was a good Christian. He wanted to pay rent. Supposing he was not a good Christian, he would now be the boss of the house. So it's a true story, by the way, told by Bishop Bagamunda. So they went. Then he discovered the woman, the widow. Say, you have not come for your rent? Hey, rent from what? Then he discovered his husband was having a house. But yesterday we were told a reverse story, whereby now there is a woman who had a lot of money and she put up a house and she was renting it, but the husband was not aware. But they were paying rent through a house manager, but the woman was the owner of the what? Of the house. You understand what I'm saying? So if there is no walking in light, Christian values, problems. Attending church services every Sunday, forgiveness, growing together spiritually, tolerance, and coexistence. Spirituality is the drive. You can come on, please. And then I will come in at the conclusion. Two slides remaining. Is it two? Yeah.
Professor and Bishop. This study is really pertinent because there is no one who will say, I belong to health or I belong to environment. You all belong to a family at least. And its origin is biblical, according to what some of us, if not most of us here know. We are looking at those that were born again for 50 years, like he may have explained. And then we tried to make sure that all these that were born again were born again for 20 years or had been in salvation for 20 years. Because we are saying if someone gets born again today, will you have known the implication it would have on your marital relationship, for example? So we're careful at inclusion and exclusion, and that's what I want to put my focus on. We looked at those that had spent 20 years in salvation. And if somebody was born again before, had not spent 20 years, would not include that, even when he was 50 years in marriage, for those that were born again. And for those that were not born again, of course, that was irrelevant to them. No asking whether you have been born again or not. And by the way, would even ask just for confirmation. Are you born again? Because this, like Professor Mugisha said, they had never had a control and treatment in caritative. These people had to confess and confirm that for them they are not born again. So there is this treatment group that has the spiritual foundation, background, practice, and the virtues related to the Christianity, the faith they believe in. So we took that to be the treatment group, and our control was the non-born again. And then we're looking at the non-born again, but as long as they are just 50 years in marriage. One other tricky part that we tried to emphasize was about the questions that we were asking. When I arrived at a couple that was born again, I would say, now that you are a Christian and an Anglican, born again for all this years in salvation, how do you find prayer? Someone tells you, when I pray, I reflect on myself. Prayer is like a mirror. I see myself and understand that actually I'm a sinner. I agree in the presence of God, not in the presence of my wife or any other person. So when I arrive at a couple which is not born again, we were not telling them, for you are not born again, but the question is different and opposite. If someone does not devote to prayer, what happens? Or do you think not getting devoted to prayer and committing yourself to praying, how does that affect your relationship with your wife, with your husband? And she will tell you, I would also prefer to pray, and sometimes when I don't pray, I keep anger. I also know if one doesn't pray, you keep anger. And then how do you do with anger? If someone doesn't take prayer, how do you sustain anger? And she says, you keep with it. You keep with it in marriage because you are married and your parents say, don't come back. So you see, the element is not the spirituality that keeps this person in marriage, but because the parents commanded, that's your home, don't come back. And the aspect of prayer, the aspect of participation, the aspect of visiting and attending church and services, every time you try to find out from a born again, would make sure that the questions are now put in opposite for the non-born again, to twist and see, because we are looking at their experience. Would not ask you, don't you think now that you don't pray, you have ABC problem? No. But from your own experience, if someone does not regularly attend, say, church services to meet with the rest of the members, how do you think that happens or affects your marriage? And she'll tell you, my children bought for me very nice clothes, but now every time I want to go to church, my husband refuses. Naketaka church. This side they call it aka church. In other words, like peer influence. And so I usually see people bypass, go for church services, but for me, I don't feel happy about it. You know, like, so he or she feels like failure to join the rest. There's a way they also feel affected. And so we wisely handled this, not to show them that you are not born again, but they would first confess, and the questions would be, in your own way, how do you look at it? We also had a scenario of people who are frustrated and that cannot leave marriage because the husbands are a pivot to their lifestyle. And as if they make a covenant, and at the end of the day, so they cannot leave and cannot complain to anyone because the settings are that a woman is supposed to be submissive. Among the born again, submission was seen positive. For women, those that were born again looked at submission in terms of lowering themselves to raise their husbands, while among the non, they saw it in terms of agreeing to suffering. Yes. And one would tell you, I had, this is the last thing I want to talk about. I have my child who became unfortunate like I am, and that for her she feeds small gods. And she keeps feeding small gods, and the husband is an usher in a church, but they are not born again. And finally, she's like, my daughter became unfortunate, and she's also in the same situation. And I told her, don't come, keep there. So we're looking at this category to see how they reach 50 years vis-a-vis those that are also born again. And we're wondering what happens. If they are all 50 years in marriage, what's the difference? The difference is on how their lifestyle is.
Thank you, Dr. Donna. Professor, I'm going to conclude on our study we did of lived experiences of non-born again and born again Anglican Christians, those who have been in marriage for 50 years and plus. We concluded that being born again makes long marriage harmonious. So we are calling upon all of us to give our lives to Jesus Christ so that we can live longer in marriage. The African teachings about marriage also contributes to longevity in marriage. This is basically about cultural connotations. As my colleague has intimated, in 8 years, when you get married, that is all. They say that in our local language, they have closed your bedroom. Good. We had an example of an issue which happened in Ntungamo. Somebody who, a couple, one of them killed the wife because of those issues. So in these couples where you find they have Jesus Christ, everything is okay. Those incidents were not there. But we had an incident which happened in Ntungamo. I think it was streaming live on TV West. So those incidences in Anglican, Christian, it's no longer there. The recommendation, we call upon all non-born again married couples to be born again so that they can enjoy their life, so that they can see the fruits of marriage, raise children very well, do parenting and everything. I thank you very much. Good.
Another round of applause. Thank you, Bishop and team. Thank you, Bishop, for well and leading our research team. I think the beauty of research like this is that it is very relatable. You can feel like part of the lived experiences, part of stories you also know, stories you're familiar with. And so thank you very much, team, for bringing for bringing that close to us. Now, I'd like to invite Mercy to come and join the podium. And to request that we stick within time. It's hard to tell the bishop that your time is up, so I let them be, but you still managed within good time. I'd like to invite Reverend Bernard to come and make his presentation. I'll sit this side so that I can warn you if time is going too much. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the floor. I'm Reverend Bernard Gwamigabo from Burundi. I'm an Anglican priest working in the diocesan office as a project manager. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to part of this conference. I want just to highlight a few things in this topic related to religion and family cohesion in Burundi. I say that this topic is relevant in Burundi as different reports and articles written on this present its relevancy and the contributions of religions and family in Burundi are becoming controversial. This is two different reasons. First, it's because of the growth of religions in Burundi is not currently reflecting the reality of God's institutions. Secondly, it's because of most families in Burundi are worrying due to different issues that Burundian people are facing. Thirdly, it's because of the cohesion of religion and family towards the well-being of Burundians. It's not fully, it's nevertheless agonizing when you evaluate. In responding to this topic, I want first of all to expose how the religions in Burundi are behaving and give the definitions of the family in Burundi and a bit analyze the values of religion and family in general and give few recommendations. I think all of you knows where Burundi is located. Burundi is a landlocked country in Africa. It is bordered on north by Rwanda, and on the east by Tanzania, and the south and west by DRC. Burundi is a small country. Burundi's total area is 27 something, with estimating population of 11 million. Now it's about 12 million. Burundi are speaking French as official, and one language, Kirundi. But now we are shifting to English. We try our best, even if we don't speak well, but we are moving. I don't want to highlight this, and CIA, World Facebook 2022-2023, and the report of International Religious Freedom 2023 highlights that, affirm that the religions has been an essential aspect in the Burundian culture and societal functioning, influencing the country's politics, ethics, and social relationships. Majority of Burundians population is Christians, with the Catholics composing about 60% of the population, while other Christian denominations, including Protestant, Anglicans, and Seventh-day Adventists, account 15% of the population. Catholics and Protestants have been influential in shaping the country's social and political landscape, with religious leaders playing a significant role in advocating for peace, reconciliation, and human rights. The Christian faith has also influenced the country, art and music, and with the Christian hymns and gospel music being popular forms of cultural expression. Islam also is another significant religion in Burundi, with 10% of the population. This religion has been existing for a long time. The faith, through their commercial activities, Islam has played an important role also in social, political life of Burundians, because Muslim religious leaders advocate for the rights of Muslims minority and promote education. They contribute in education. However, relationships of Muslims and Christians, it's not so well. Another religion, it's a traditional African religion. It has been significant in Burundi, with over 20% of population. This religion is based on the worship of ancestors, purity and elements, and considered as crucial aspect of the country's cultural heritage. Despite the influence of Christianity, Islam, traditional religions has persisted, with many people incorporating it into their religious practice, especially traditional ceremonies and rituals. I can conclude on this by saying that religion has played a role in shaping Burundi's political landscape, with politicians exploring different in faith to gain political mileage. Most of Christian political leaders align themselves in one of or the other religions mentioned. Jeffrey, 2007, and Eggers, 2006, both show that in Burundi, there are three types of families: the extended family, the household family, and the managed family. They argue that this extended family regroup several families united by belonging to the same clan or to the same lineage around a common ancestor. The household family is regroup the father, his spouse or spouses, his children, his married son and their children. And the managed family includes father, mother, and young children who are not married yet. Thus, family's relationship regulates life among community members. The rights and obligations of each member are regulated by the heads, the leaders. However, Gillard clarifies that Burundi has a patriarchal society where gender roles are firmly established and guided by traditional beliefs and customs. According to Burundian culture, in a family, men are considered the head of the household and their primary responsibility to provide for families' basic needs, including shelter and all the women, on the other hand, are responsible for taking care of home, children, other domestic affairs, those small things. Women are roles in Burundi, families are mostly confined to the private sphere and they are not expected to participate in public life or decision processes. And Ley, 2007, claims that in Burundi's family, women participation in economic activities is limited and they face significant barriers to access education, employment, and credit facilities. This patriarchal nature of Burundian society views women as inferior to men, and their contribution to the economic and society are not valued. Women's empowerment and gender equality are still a distant reality in Burundi, despite efforts to promote gender equality and women's rights. In addition to that, a Burundian rights emphasize that in Burundi, family stability has been affected by civil wars and political instability. A significant number of families have been torn apart. Religions has values, and John Mbiti highlight this because he say that Christianity, Muslims, and African religion traditions, they are structured. They are structures because Christianity have Bible, which have everything which can direct Christians. The Muslims have the Quran, which can guide them, and African religion have the experience, enough experience to be so quickly. All these religions have values. They have values. And in Christianity, like Galatians 5 breaks down the most essential and core Christian values in details. He mentioned that love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control must characterize all Christians. These are the values of in Christianity. Even though Islam, there are values. They are led by kindness, humility, respect. All this encompasses everything from modesty and compassion to justice and integrity, nurturing societal harmony and individual growth. By following major aspects, because beliefs in the Supreme God, it's key. Practice of worshiping the Supreme God, Supreme Being, it's key. Naming and expressing the Supreme, it's key. The issue is that religions are not sticking on their values in order to transform the Burundian community, in order to be still relevant, because economic factors has been distorted, and this very big. This is why you want to recommend to religion in Burundi that they need to practice their values in order to remain relevant, to be unified in order to be able to teach unity to all Burundians, to create a network which helps them to discuss and shape a common vision, and make sure that they are singing one song, and a true song, because
So what we will do is we'll have all the presentations, and then we'll have a question and answer. Please note who you want your questions to go to so that we can save. Much Reverend Bernard for reminding us of the Christian values. And I think if we all lived by these values, our lives would be very different. So thank you so much. Mercy, please come in. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Mercy Liharaka from Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, that is in Nairobi, Kenya. But I had the privilege to be born and bred in western parts of Kenya. So the culture of Uganda is it's not new to me as much, because there is a lot of intermarriages in between, and some of the things are familiar with me. So I feel at home. And in the University of Agriculture and Technology, I am a horticulturist. My 2 degrees are in horticulture. Then some in between, I did biotechnology. And that is what I'll be presenting to us, the role of religion in horticulture. So as we have been told severally, what this religion is all about is just the beliefs and the practices that we have as individuals, as communities, as cultures. And they are usually intertwined with spirituality, because it's hard for you to be religious and not to have an aspect of spirituality, and that is just what you believe in. As my predecessor has talked about the major kinds of religion that are here, and in one way or the other, most of us are associated to one or the other. And for me, as part of my ministry work, I serve with the children. I know sometimes people ask me, Mercy, you are a doctor, what are you doing with the children? But for me, that is where my ministry is, and especially the 3 to 5 years, because I believe in Deuteronomy 6, that unless we tell it down to our children, our next and next generation, then we are losing it. Because whether you are Christian or Muslim, it has to start at a lower age so that they don't depart from it. So this religion influences the overall growth and the economic growth of a nation, and it influences agriculture. And in the broader term, horticulture is just part of agriculture. And with horticulture, we are simply dealing with the perishables. What we grow, but has the capability or has a short shelf life. And when we are looking at this, we are looking at olericulture, and that is vegetables, the science of growing and everything to do with vegetables. And vegetables are broad. They are also encompassed with herbs and spices. And I'm sure even as we have taken our break, we have enjoyed either cardamom or cinnamon or ginger. So that is still part of horticulture. Then we have the broader one that is also pomology. And pomology here, we are looking at fruits. And Uganda is doing so well in bananas because that is still categorized under fruits. And the other branch of this is floriculture. Floriculture is simply flowers and in various categories, because I believe if we came here and this was not here, we could be like, this place is boring or something, but floriculture at least gives beauty to our eyes, and we are able to appreciate what nature is able to give us. So when we look at the broader categories of vegetables, we said we have the leafy vegetables, we have the fruity vegetables, and we also have the herbs and spices. And I will say like this was the original design of God, because he began by putting Adam and Eve in the garden. And in this garden was just herbs and fruits, and that is what they were meant like to be taking. And also, it is hard, like when you go to the hospital, the doctor will hardly tell you, take a lot of chapatis or take a lot of rice, but they will always refer you to the vegetables and the fruits. And even World Health Organization says that 2.7 million of people could be saved annually if they are supplied with enough fruits and vegetables. So this is something that we ought to include daily in our diets. Yeah, I know we are doing it, but sometimes it is unawares. But if we could have this in our daily consumptions, then we could reduce on the rates of mortalities. Then when I look at the fruits, they have like different colors, and these colors remind us, for the Christians, they have different connotations with these colors. Like red fruits will always remind us of the blood of Jesus. Yellow orange reminds us of the Holy Spirit, because Acts chapter 2, as the fire was coming down, it was in the form of red, orange, yellow, which is the Holy Spirit. And green is everywhere. I always say that is God's favorite color, because you'll hardly go steps without having an encounter with green. Then purple is royalty. Yeah? And all this, as we read even from the the first books, we are able to see how these colors came about. And for the herbs, they give us, they flavor our foods, they color our food, they give aroma, preserve foods and beverages, and we can take them in various forms. Because for the spices, mostly, it is after drying, then we have the spices. But for the herbs is when we take them when they are still raw, or the leafy type, then they become herbs. But the spices have maybe to go under drying, then when we use the afterward product, that becomes the spices. And it is said that the more people who consume this, they tend to live long. And I will relate this to our friends in India, Asia. They do a lot of herbs and spices, and you can tell they live longer because these products have have these components that are antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, that take care of our body. So like when you are religious and you are taking this, then it means you are also improving your lifespan. You get to live long and we reduce the rates of mortality. So like from even the 17th century, spices were used for religious offerings, rituals, medicine, and for food seasoning. And still we can relate to what Queen Sheba brought so many of these spices to King Solomon. And even Exodus 16:31, manna that was given was described in the form of coriander seeds, and coriander is a herb. Yes, it is in that category of herbs and spices. Then also in the New Testament, we still had the tithing of the mint, and also when the women who were going to anoint the body of Jesus were going with spices. And in the other religions, like the Hindus, they insist so much on being vegetarian. And when they are vegetarians, then it means that also helps them to live long. And remember, as we said, that this category of crops is perishable. So it means that all these other systems have to be in place. And when they're in place, then that calls for development, because it has to come all the way from the farmer until maybe to the market. If they're using them as their gods, then it means they're encouraged to grow them. Then also we know what is so close to us, the Seventh Adventists, they are also encouraged to be more of vegetarians. Then also for the fruits, they just grow they are grown in the orchards. And I will urge our bishop that you presented that you have 223 acres, but there was not so much of horticulture. Maybe you can incorporate the fruits, because when you are even having these orchards, it means they're also solving these issues of climate change. As people are working, they can use that as shade. The same time they are plucking the fruits they are eating, to mean they are getting healthy all through. And these like vegetables and herbs are short season crops, like 3 months, 4 months, and they are able, like the projects that you're having, then this can also be an enterprise that they can be running. Then we have seen, like I'll say for Kenya, with the coming of with the Hindus that are there, has seen the herbal industry like grow, because now we used to know, we never used to know, like maybe these things like turmeric, you can use them, but now we know we have a ready market, and they are able to sustain us from the local to them, because we know we have already market, and we are also seeing the benefits. And also religions like Muslims that make use of the dried fruits, the dates. We know, like when they are in Ramadan, then they eat more of the dates. So those who are growing the dates, you know, during that season, you will be having a bumper harvest. Sorry. So also just to the flowers, we have all used the flowers in different functions, and like in Christianity, the Easter lilies symbolize the resurrection of Jesus Christ and the purity, and also the other religions have flowers that they are dedicated to their religions. And all this just shows that spirituality and religion promote development, because different religions will focus on different horticultural produce, and in the community where they are, it is just not meant for them alone. Other people are also partakers of that. So let us integrate horticulture, and I believe we'll grow together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mercy. And who knew that flowers and these things had anything to do with religion? At least I didn't know. So I have learned. And I want to remind us of the things we have just gone through. We have had a presentation by Bishop and his team on the lived experiences of born-again Christians and the impact on longevity of marriage. We've also heard from Reverend Bernard on religion and family cohesion. And of course, the last one, which you cannot forget, religion and horticulture. All these are very interesting, provocative topics. And now the people with the microphone, you can move. I think we'll take like maybe 4 questions and have those responded to, and then have maybe another round if we are doing well with time. So put up your hand. I have 2, 1, 2, 3. 4th? Is there a 4th question? Yeah. Okay. So I'll start from there and then move to this table and come over here.
I salute all the presenters. My name is Gad Ruzaza. I have 2 brief questions. With humility and by the grace of God, this question comes to you, my Lord Bishop, convener of the conference, Associate Professor Fred Sheldon Ngesigo. Could be this question is also about me, but actually it is carved out of a community which I once in a while participate in by virtue of family responsibility. About humility. This also happened this week. The teaching of love and humility in marriage, this is actually biblical teaching, we know. But on this group, there was the challenge of humility. And the questions were, what does humility mean? What does humility mean? And how is it experienced? How is it presented? And it was like really a conference on a WhatsApp group. I think it was very hard to fathom. So a comment would be very helpful, especially for future generations, so that not all goes to the waste. Another question comes to you, Dr. Master. Congratulations upon being the love of 2 countries, a good neighbor. This question is about your eloquence, about coloring, the world being colored. You remind me about South Africa, a rainbow nation, multicolor nation, where people would have to live together. And you exonerate yourself in front of God by claiming that green is God's color. What is the other very good color? And this one I call it the people's color. And I'm coming from philosophy, the philosophy of moralism, where actually the old philosophers of the Greek Empire believed that power, just like love, both of them are bought by flowers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mercy, there you are. You'll have to tell us what the people's color is. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. My name is Joseph, and it's been a very educative session. One, I know there are some research presentations that came from the presenters. A few questions to the gallant team led by our Lord Bishop. One, the inclusion criteria was a little bit hazy. I stand to be educated on how you delineated born again versus non-born again. I've read a few articles from religious review journals, Sociology and Religion, and there's a paucity of a proper definition of born again, and I think most papers, tend to use having a born again experience. Two, did you find any limitations in that study, and how did you mitigate those limitations? Finally, what's the next question after this? I'll be very interested in knowing the outcomes of offsprings born to these two groups in regard to their career aspirations, how they have been able to achieve things in life, because there are studies actually in the West comparing offsprings of people born to Christians vis-a-vis non-Christians, and very clear distinctions, very clear. I'd want to know the next question you'd want to study. Yeah, finally to Dr. Mercy, we're in a world of value addition. It's good to have flowers beautifying the compound and gardens, and then you go and pick. How can I use my 20 by 20 feet of a compound to add value to those flowers and fruits, and I'm able to harvest more than someone with tens of acres?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. A very good question there for those of us who have very small spaces. Yes, go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, moderator, and I want to thank the presenters for very informative presentations. I have two questions for two presenters. So I'll start with the Right Reverend, and then I'll go to the Reverend. I observed that the study you did is what I would call an observational study. Actually, in epidemiology, we would call it a case control study. You have a group of the born agains and then the controls who are not born again, giving the definitions that you did. Since you were looking at groups that have been born again for 30 years and married for up 50 years, did you take into account possible intervening variables